My mother found my bank statement showing $127,000. Now she's house shopping for my sister with my money. I, 28 male, am a commercial saturation diver. For those of you who don't know what that is, let me paint a picture. I spend roughly 6 to 8 months of the year living in a pressurized metal tube about the size of a Winnebago, usually sitting on the deck of a support vessel or suspended hundreds of feet below the surface of the ocean. I breathe a mixture of helium and oxygen that makes me sound like a cartoon character, but the work is deadly serious. I fix oil heads, weld pipelines, and do construction in pitch-black water where the pressure is enough to crush a normal human body into a soda can. It is cold, it is claustrophobic, and it is incredibly lonely. We are well compensated for this. We trade our health, our youth, and our social lives for a paycheck that most people only dream of. I live out of a waterproof duffel bag and a climate-controlled storage unit. I drive a 2014 pickup with a dented bumper and 180,000 miles on it. I wear generic t-shirts and jeans. To the outside world, and specifically to my family, I look like a guy who was just scraping by, maybe doing odd jobs or manual labor that doesn't amount to much. That is by design. I learned a long time ago that money changes people, especially the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. 2 weeks ago, I came back to my hometown in Ohio. I had a window of downtime between contracts to renew some certifications and handle administrative life stuff, renewing a license, getting a physical, that sort of thing. I made the colossal mistake of staying with my mother instead of booking a hotel. I thought, foolishly, that it would be nice to reconnect. We have always had a rocky relationship. She is the type of person who views her children not as individuals but as extensions of herself, specifically as her retirement plan and emotional support animals. Then there is my sister, 26F. She is the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. She married a guy who thinks buying scratch-off tickets constitutes a diversified investment portfolio. They have 2 kids, they are drowning in credit card debt, and they currently rent a cramped 2-bedroom apartment that they constantly complain about. I arrived on a Tuesday. By Wednesday afternoon, the dynamic was already suffocating. Mother kept making passive-aggressive comments about my homeless look and asking when I was going to get a real job that didn't involve playing mermaid in the dark. She kept hinting that my sister was struggling and that it would be nice if I, as the bachelor with no responsibilities, pitched in for groceries or gas. I bought the groceries, I filled the tanks. I kept my mouth shut because I knew I'd be gone in 10 days. Here is the screw-up that started the war. I had my mail forwarded to her house for the week because I was expecting my new certification cards. Included in that packet was a thick envelope from my bank. It was my quarterly statement for my high-yield savings account and my brokerage portfolio. I sat at the kitchen table, opened it, checked the numbers to make sure my direct deposits had hit, and then I went to the bathroom. I left the folder closed but sitting on the table. When I came back 5 minutes later, the folder was moved, just an inch or two. The corner was slightly bent like someone had hurriedly shoved it back into place. Mother was at the sink, aggressively scrubbing a pot that was already clean. She was humming. My mother never hums unless she thinks she has won something. "Everything okay?" I asked, grabbing the folder. "Oh, just wonderful," she said. She turned around and her eyes were different. They were wide, shiny, and predatory. "I did not realize diving paid so well. I thought you were just getting by." I felt the cold prickle on the back of my neck, a sensation I usually only get when a seal fails at depth. "It pays for the risk, Ma," I said, shoving the papers into my backpack. $127,000, she said, testing the number on her tongue like it was fine wine. "And that's just the cash account." "That is my life savings," I said, my voice hardening. "That is for when my lungs give out or I get the bends and can't walk anymore. That is my retirement." She waved a wet, soapy hand dismissively. "You are young. You are strong. You have your whole life to earn more. And you have so much surplus." I grabbed my bag and zipped it shut. It is not surplus, it's my safety net. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I had made my boundary clear. I was wrong. That number, $127,000, had flipped a switch in her brain. She didn't see savings. She saw a resource that was being hoarded by a selfish son while her golden child struggled. 2 days later, on Saturday morning, Mother woke me up at 8 a.m. by banging on my door. "Get dressed," she yelled through the wood. "Nice clothes. We're going to brunch with your sister." I didn't want to go. I wanted to sleep, but the guilt trips started immediately. "You're never home. Your sister misses you. Do it for the nephews. Do it for me." I caved. I put on a button-down shirt and my clean jeans. We did not go to brunch. Mother pulled her SUV into a subdivision of new-build homes about 20 minutes outside of town. It was one of those neighborhoods where every house looks exactly the same, just a different shade of beige. She parked front of a sprawling 2-story house with a for sale sign in the yard. My sister and her husband were already there, standing in the driveway, looking up at the house like they were staring at the gates of Valhalla. "What are we doing here?" I asked, keeping my hand on the door handle. "Just looking," Mother said, unlocking the doors with a chirp. "It's a surprise." We got out. My sister ran over and hugged me, which was deeply unusual. She usually only hugs me when she needs $50 or help moving a couch. "Isn't it beautiful?" she squealed, gesturing to the house. "It has 4 bedrooms. The boys would finally have a yard to run in." A woman in a blazer walked out of the front door, a realtor. "You must be the brother. I've heard so much about you." I looked at Mother. She was beaming. "Come on, let's take the tour." I walked through the house in a daze. It was nice, sure. Granite countertops, hardwood floors that smelled like chemicals, a finished basement. The asking price was on the flyer on the counter, $425,000. That was high for this area, suspiciously high, but I wasn't paying attention to the market. In the kitchen, around the oversized island, the ambush happened. My sister was leaning against the counter, rubbing her stomach. She doesn't consistently do that when she wants to look vulnerable. Her husband was leaning against the wall, trying to look cool, but looking mostly like he was hungover. Mother stood next to the realtor, looking like a general commanding troops. "So," Mother said, clapping her hands together, "here's the plan. Sister and her husband can't qualify for the full mortgage because of, well, past mistakes with credit, but they can afford the monthly payments if the principal is lower." I stared at them. I knew what was coming. I could feel it coming like a freight train. And, Mother continued, smiling like she was bestowing a gift upon me, "the bank requires a 20% down payment to avoid PMI and get the good interest rate, plus closing costs. And they need to clear some outstanding debts to fix their debt-to-income ratio." She paused for effect, smiling like she was bestowing a gift. "We did the math. If you put down $100,000, that covers the down payment and the closing. The remaining $27,000 will pay off their credit cards so they qualify for the loan. You will co-sign, obviously, just to secure the loan, but they will pay the mortgage. It is a win-win." The silence in the kitchen was heavy. The realtor looked uncomfortable but hopeful. She smelled a massive commission. My sister looked entitled, like this was already a done deal and she was just waiting for the check. Mother looked expectant. "No," I said. My sister's smile dropped instantly. "What?" "No," I repeated. "I am not giving you my savings. I am not co-signing a $500,000 liability for 2 people who can't manage a household budget." "It is not giving," Mother snapped, her voice rising. "It is an investment in your family. You have that money sitting in an account doing nothing. Your sister is suffering in that apartment. Do you want your nephews to grow up in a slum?" "They live in a complex with a pool, Ma. It is not a slum. And I live in a storage unit. I risked my life for that money. It is not a lottery win." "You are selfish," Sister spat out, stepping off the counter. "You always have been. You think you are better than us because you go away and work. You think you are some big shot." "I think I am financially literate," I shot back. "I am not doing it." I turned to leave. Mother stepped in front of me, blocking the hallway. Her face was red. "If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back to my house. That money is family money. I raised you. I fed you. You owe us." "I don't owe you a house," I said. I walked around her. I walked out the front door, down the driveway, and called an Uber from the curb while they screamed at me from the porch. The realtor scurried to her car, looking terrified that she was witnessing a domestic disturbance. I checked into a Motel 6 on the other side of town. I thought the distance would cool things down. I thought they would realize they had overstepped. Instead, it escalated. My phone exploded. I got texts from aunts I haven't seen in a decade calling me a greedy bastard. Facebook posts from my sister vaguely referencing family betrayal and toxic men who hate women. Mother sent me a text that read, "I am so disappointed in the man you have become. Your father would be ashamed." That one stung, considering my father is alive and divorced her 10 years ago to escape this exact kind of financial abuse. I blocked them all for a day to clear my head. On Monday morning, I decided to check my accounts, just paranoia setting in. I went to the banking app on my phone. Login failed. Password incorrect. I tried the reset option. Security questions changed. My stomach dropped through the floor. I called the bank immediately. It took me an hour of verification, shouting my social security number and confirming my identity with voice recognition. Finally, I got a senior fraud representative on the line. "Sir, it looks like your password was reset yesterday via telephone banking," the rep said. "The caller verified all the security questions: mother's maiden name, first pet, high school mascot." Of course, she knew all of them. She set half of them up when I opened the account as a teenager. "Was any money moved?" I asked, my hand shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. "There is a pending wire transfer initiated this morning for $85,000 to a title company and a second transfer for $40,000 to a joint checking account at another bank." The world stopped. They weren't just asking, they were taking. They were draining me. "Stop it," I said. "That is fraudulent. I did not authorize that." "Okay, sir, we can freeze the account, but since the wire was initiated with correct credentials and verified over the phone, we have to open a fraud investigation. It might take time to reverse." "Freeze it now and tell me exactly who the money was going to." They gave me the name of the title company and the account details for the second transfer. It was my mother's personal account. I hung up. I didn't call Mother. I didn't call my sister. I sat on the edge of the motel bed and let the rage crystallize into something cold and sharp. They had committed a federal crime. They had impersonated me. They had tried to steal the literal blood money I earned in the dark. I called a lawyer. Not a family lawyer, but a frantic criminal defense attorney I knew from high school who now did white-collar fraud litigation. "This is messy," he told me over coffee an hour later at a diner. "If you report this as fraud, your mother is looking at wire fraud, identity theft, and bank fraud. These are felonies. We're talking jail time." "She tried to steal everything I have," I said. "I know, but are you ready to put your mother in handcuffs?" I thought about the homeless comments. I thought about the entitlement. I thought about the years of being the scapegoat while my sister got everything. I thought about the sheer audacity of stealing my identity. "Yes," I said, "but I want to do it right. I want to make sure it sticks. I don't want them to wiggle out of this by saying it was a misunderstanding or a family dispute." He smiled, a shark-like grin. "Then we don't stop the wire. We let them dig the hole deeper." A shell company managed by my sister's husband's cousin. That explained why the price was $425,000 when comparable houses in the area were selling for $360,000. The appraisal had been cooked. The plan was to use my money to buy the house at the inflated price. The cousin would sell the house, take the cash, and then kick back the extra $60,000 or so to my sister and her husband under the table. Mother knew about it. She wasn't just stealing my savings for a house. She was helping them launder my money into untraceable cash so they could buy new cars and whatever else they wanted. They were going to bleed me dry and laugh about it in a new Escalade. Friday came. The closing was at the title company's office downtown. I walked in at 10 a.m. The atmosphere was celebratory. My sister was already planning where to put the couch. Her husband was high-fiving the realtor. Mother was sitting at the head of the table, looking like the matriarch of a dynasty. "There he is," the realtor chirped. "The generous brother." There was a stack of papers in front of my sister. "We just need the gift letter signed," the closing agent said, sliding a single sheet of paper toward me.
stating that the $85,000 is a gift and repayment is not required, and we need a signature verifying the earnest money source. My sister was grinning. "Thanks, bro. I promise you can stay in the guest room whenever you want." I picked up the pen. I looked at Mother. She gave me a nod, a look that said, "You know your place." I put the pen down. "I can't sign this," I said. The room went quiet. The air conditioning hummed. "What do you mean?" Mother hissed. "The money is already transferred. It is pending." "Actually," I said, "it is not. I canceled the wire this morning, and I flagged the account for fraud." My sister stood up so fast her chair tipped over. "You what?" "And," I continued, reaching into my jacket, "I brought something else for you to sign." I tossed a folder onto the polished wood table. It landed with a heavy slap. Papers fanned out. A police report, and fraud affidavit, a copy of the credit card transaction for the earnest money, and the report on the shell company owned by the cousin. "What is this?" the realtor asked, her voice trembling. "My mother and sister accessed my bank accounts without my permission," I said, addressing the closing agent who had gone pale. "They impersonated me on the phone to bypass security. They used a stolen credit card to pay the earnest money deposit. This entire transaction is funded by the proceeds of criminal identity theft, and the sale price is artificially inflated to facilitate a kickback scheme involving the seller." "You liar!" Mother screamed. She actually lunged across the table, knocking over a water pitcher. "He is lying. He promised us that money. He is just jealous." "I have the audio recording of the call to the bank," I said calmly. "I have the IP logs, and I have the text messages where you admitted to using my card." The closing agent closed her laptop decisively. "We are terminating this closing immediately. I am legally obligated to report this to the lender as attempted mortgage fraud." "You can't do that," my sister shrieked, tears instantly streaming down her face. "We gave notice on our apartment. We have to move out by Monday. We have nowhere to go." "That sounds like a personal problem," I said. "I'm calling the police," Mother yelled, fumbling for her phone. "You don't have to," I said. "I already did." I pointed to the glass conference room doors. 2 officers were standing in the lobby. I had arranged for them to be there to take a statement regarding the active use of the stolen credit card, as the transaction had officially posted that morning. The color drained from Mother's face. It was the first time in my life I had ever seen her truly afraid. The realization hit her. This wasn't a family squabble. This wasn't a tantrum she could manipulate her way out of. This was the law. The fallout was catastrophic, rapid, and deeply satisfying. The closing agent informed the realtor that her client, my family, had attempted mortgage fraud. The realtor, realizing her license was on the line if she stayed involved, fired them on the spot and stormed out. Because the financing fell through due to fraud, the $5,000 earnest money deposit was forfeited to the sellers. The seller, the cousin, was furious. He is now being investigated for a pattern of mortgage fraud involving inflated appraisals because I handed that file over to the state real estate board. The police officers didn't arrest them right there in the office. White-collar crime usually involves an investigation first. But they took statements. They separated mother and sister. Without the ability to coordinate their lies, their stories fell apart instantly. I filed formal charges for identity theft, wire fraud, and credit card theft. My sister and her husband lost the house, obviously, but the kicker is that they also lost their apartment. They had terminated their lease effective the coming Monday, and the landlord had already rented it to someone else. They were homeless. They are currently staying in a cheap motel on the highway, paid for by Mother, who is rapidly burning through her own actual retirement savings to keep them afloat. Mother is facing felony identity theft charges. My lawyer says she will likely get probation and a massive fine since it's a first offense, but the conviction will be on her record. Her reputation in our small town is destroyed. The bank has blacklisted her. She can't open a checking account at any major financial institution. She has to use currency exchanges and prepaid cards like a drug dealer. But the sweetest part? The betrayal within their own ranks. When the pressure got hot, the husband, my in-law, flipped to save his own skin. He admitted to the police that the kickback scheme was Mother's idea. He threw her under the bus to avoid being charged as an accomplice. Now they're all at each other's throats. I'm back on a rig now, sitting in a saturation chamber 300 feet down in the Gulf of Mexico. It's quiet here. The air is recycled and the pressure is immense, but it feels lighter than being in that house. My phone is disconnected. I have a new number, new bank accounts with high security protocols, and a new lawyer who handles my estate. I received one email from my father before I went under. It was short. Heard what you did. Proud of you. She tried the same thing on me in '08 with a car loan. Glad you had the stones to burn it down. Stay safe in the water. I reflected on it during my decompression stops. People say family is everything. They say you have to forgive blood. But blood doesn't give anyone the right to siphon your life force. I realized that my frugality wasn't just about saving money. It was about independence. It was about ensuring that I never ever had to rely on people like them. They wanted a savior. They got a mirror. I'm $127,000 richer. Well, minus legal fees, but that was money well spent. I have 0 family members, and I am the happiest I have ever been. If you enjoyed reading about how I torpedoed my toxic family's attempt at grand larceny and mortgage fraud, hit that subscribe button. It costs less than a stolen down payment, and the karma is immediate.